So the new movie Homestead released yesterday, December 20th, 2024 in theaters, and I went to go see it. I want to share with you my thoughts. Well, hi friends, I'm Brian Cosby with Provide and Protect, and today I want to talk about the movie Homestead. And like I said, it just released yesterday in theaters. And as I saw previews for this and advertisements about it, it really fit well with what we're trying to promote here on this channel to be providers and protectors. And so it really piqued my interest. And so I went to go see it. And I want to give you my thoughts on this. However, I don't want to make this a spoiler. So it's maybe partial spoiler in some ways, but I really want to be careful about that. But I do want to give you the highlights, the overview, and my pros and cons to this movie. So Homestead is by Angel Studios, which means you're not going to have bad language, you're not going to have sexual content, you're not going to have gore. There is fighting and some intense moments and guns and shooting and all that kind of stuff, for sure. But they really promote faith and family and freedom as a studio. The basic overview of the movie, and you can find this online, so I'm not really doing a spoiler here. The basic overview of the movie is that there is a nuclear attack in LA, and there's also a grid down, the whole East Coast is without electricity, so the whole nation is under attack basically. And there is a retreat called the Homestead that someone has built and planned for this kind of event to happen. And certain families and relatives and close friends of this one particular family that owns this retreat in the Rockies has everyone come to his place. And the owner of that the kind of mountain retreat compound, you might want to call it, is, I'm going to have some notes here. His name in the movie is Ian Ross. It's played by Neil McDonough. And Neil McDonough's been in a lot of well-known movies, great actor. And the guy that the other main character in the movie is a guy that runs security, former Green Beret that comes and runs security for the owner of this Homestead compound. And that's played by Billy Chase in the movie. His name is Jeff. So Jeff and his group of Green Berets come and they really seek to defend this compound. And what you would initially think would be, well, people are good-natured. Now, we know that's not the case, but I think a lot of people think, well, people are good-natured, and if there's a crisis or an emergency event in our nation, then, everybody's going to help one another out. Everybody's going to be loving toward one another. And this movie really shows, I think, a realistic picture of what we could expect if something like this ever happened. And it really just descends into chaos. Like I said, I made some notes here of my pros and cons about the movie. And I just want to go through this pretty quickly, but to give you an idea, if this is something that you want to go and watch, my pros are these. Number one, I do think it has decent acting. Maybe not the best acting, but I think it's pretty decent. I think a couple of people that saw the preview of this, a full preview of the movie before it actually was released yesterday. I think some people were like, this kind of subpar acting. I think it was pretty good. So I'm going to rate that up as a pro on this. I had bad expectations of the acting going into it because of what some people said. I thought it was pretty good myself. I think the biggest pro, maybe one of the biggest pros, is that it does portray, I think, realistic scenarios of what life could be like in a world, in a culture where there is mass grid down situation and you can't go to the store, and whether it's a nuclear attack or an EMP attack and the entire electrical grid is down, something like that. And so some things I wrote down about the realistic scenarios is some people trying to get out of LA. I mean, the traffic is, horrible. No one can get out. There's electrical outage, so all your normal electrical things that you have around your house, they don't work. And because of that, and there's fear and panic, there's a lot of looting, and it showed a lot of this stuff. So other thing I'm going to talk about, it showed all this stuff in some kind of way or another. Again, I'm not going to spoil it, but they show it some kind of way or another. Looting in stores, marauders, groups of banded people going through neighborhoods and doing things to take what they want. The importance of communication was a big one. Cell phones are out. Well, what other forms of communication do you have? And that was actually a big part, I think, of the film. The importance of other forms of communication, the importance of having food. I mean, people will do whatever it takes to get food. If they're hungry, especially a guy that's trying to provide for his family, they're going to do whatever it takes. And I think the movie really did that well of showing a realistic scenario of the importance of food and water. Also, fuel, medical supplies. I mean, some folks, they don't have their prescription medicine or extra of it, and they run out, and there's problems with that. People get hurt, injured, and they don't have proper or adequate medical supplies. Um, Even animal husbandry became a kind of an interesting element in this movie. Animal husbandry, and so knowing how to take care of animals and use animals and the benefit of animals to be able to survive. Alternate forms of electricity, so solar generators, were emphasized in the movie. Having a go bag ready, it was a subtle thing I thought in the movie, but the importance of if you're in a big city, then you have to get out to another area to have a go bag that you can just, in a moment's notice, grab a bag and get out. That was certainly emphasized with all the survival things that you're going to need for 72 hours or something with a family. The kind of a funny side, I don't know, again, it was more subtle, but it definitely came out, was the deficiency of all electric vehicles in a scenario like that. You're trying to get out of town, you're going into a remote rural area. They're not going to have chargers for all your cars, and it takes a long time to charge them up. So there's that. And that kind of led to something else in the movie that I thought was interesting, is that otherwise normally kind, nice, loving people, like you and me, I hope, will do things that are unkind and out of character and illegal in a scenario where your life or the life of your family is in danger. And that is a realistic scenario. And I think they did that part well. Also, I think the problem of living in big cities came out. So those are some of the realistic scenarios that I saw in the movie. Also, what was emphasized, the importance of having knowledge and skills. Can you build a fire? Can you shoot a rifle? Do you know how to communicate with a two-way radio? Just a lot of various kinds of things. Do you know how to do things? Do you have skills and knowledge to be able to provide and protect for your family? Again, this is why I think this movie fits so well with my channel, Provide and Protect, because so many things made me think about being a provider and protector. Another interesting theme that came through, and I think they did this well. These are all pros. I think they did this well, was to really talk about the role of the government. There were some in the movie that were really thinking and believing that the government, FEMA, was just going to show up and save the day. And that was a kind of a constant theme that I kind of saw. And the realistic scenario is when the whole country or a big portion or regions of the country are really in shambles, you can't always depend on the government to do that. And so that was a contrasting theme I found in the movie. Another thing I thought was interesting, and maybe the most important ethical piece to the movie, that I think they did this well. Again, a pro to the movie. I think this did this really well. Is the tension between, okay, let's say you have prepared and you have all that you need. You've got food and water and medical supplies and guns and security and all these things. And all of a sudden, a lot of people show up at your gate, or they, as it were, show up knocking on your door. And all your friends, your close friends, your not so close friends, your family members, everybody's coming to your place. Do you let them all in? Do you let some of them in? Who do you say, yes, you can come, you can't? And for the people that you say you can't come, are you prepared to deal with the consequences of that? That was a tension in the movie that I think they brought out well. In fact, so my wife went with me last night, and we were talking about this, and what would I do? Well, I had more of a firm stance. I think she had more of a loving stance, but we saw the benefits and the pros and cons of both. So I think they did that well. They brought out that tension. That's something that you probably need to think about ahead of time as well. That if someone's going to come and eat your food that you've been preparing and drink your water that you've been preparing and use your medical supplies that you have, yes, it's a loving thing. But if you let everybody in, it's all gone in one day and everybody dies. So is there a priority? What we used to call the principle of moral proximity. There's a priority of taking care, number one, of yourself and your wife and your family. That's number one. And then beyond that, you could be generous, but it may not be an obligation for you. The Bible, I'm a Christian, so the Bible talks about, taking care of those within your household first, and then the household of faith, and then others. And if you don't provide, you got to provide for those within your own household. That's like immediate. So there is, I think, a principle of moral proximity as it extends out to others. So you don't have, I think it would be, again, generous to help someone that's in need, but I don't think it'd be obligatory. So let me talk about the cons. Well, I think the first con is that it seemed to portray a dichotomy that I think is false, but a dichotomy between loving others, as it were, outside your gate, wanting to get in, and fighting and protecting yourself. And there doesn't have to be, there is a tension, and that's what I've already talked about. I think the movie portrayed that well, but it doesn't have to be one or the other. I think there's a way to have a rightly ordered love and a rightly ordered way to show that love and care for others that doesn't have to be at odds with each other. And that's kind of how the movie ended, with showing something that was very opposite that I didn't think had to be opposite. So that's one negative. I think another negative is that there was this kind of odd, I'm going to call it odd, blossoming romance between the daughter of the homeowner, the Homestead compound owner, played by Neil, and the son of the main security forces guy, played in Jeff in the movie. So it was, I think it was just too emphasized for a one-off movie. I spent too much time on this little blossoming romance. I was like, come on. I know it's realistic, probably in a scenario like that where you have all these people coming into a compound, but I think it emphasized it too much. And that leads to the third and final negative, and this was the big negative for me, is that it just leaves you hanging. Now, that was, I think, intentional, because as I didn't know until the end, I mean, last scene is like the end is but the beginning or something like that. And basically it's a extended full-length movie trailer for a series. And I didn't know this going into it, that is actually, there's a series. And so you can actually, at the end of the movie, you can actually take a screenshot of a QR code that's on the screen and then watch the first one or two episodes, I guess, in the series. So at the end of the movie, I was like, there wasn't closure. There, something happened. Again, I'm not going to spoil it, but something happened that you're like, no, we need to find, there needs to be some kind of resolve to this, resolution. Like, what's next? And it doesn't show you. And the reason is because they want you to watch, I guess, the rest of the movies or the series in the Homestead series. So that was that. I was like, okay, you're promoting it as a movie, like a feature-length film, and it was that long, but it just kind of left me hanging. And it seems like even in a series, you can at least have some closure before you get to the next video or movie in the series. So anyway, that was kind of one negative. But overall, I do think it does a fantastic job. My big takeaway from the movie, if someone asked me, I think my big takeaway is I think it just gives a very good, realistic picture of what life could be like. And I think it makes you wrestle with some of those ethical things I've mentioned, and also to maybe take inventory. Are you prepared for something? It doesn't have to be nuclear bomb, but even recently we had a hurricane come not too far from here, and it just wiped out a lot of homes and houses and people and all kinds of things. And it could have been a lot worse as far as the extended area and devastation, even though it was horrible. But people were able to get in there quickly from other places because it was isolated. Now, If it was a whole eastern U.S., that's a whole nother situation. Or a nuclear warhead that, I mean, you're talking uh, more devastation than a hurricane. But it just goes to show that it doesn't have to be a nuclear attack. It could be a lot of different situations that could put you in a place where you need to prepare yourself and your family and possibly others who come knocking. Well, this has been helpful for you today, and if you have other thoughts about the movie or if you have other questions about the movie, please drop those down below. But if you've not done so, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. I really appreciate you and your support for us. And with that, I'll see you in the next video.